is a spiritual war, many ignore. This is the knock on your door. I am the hammer of Thor, so stay out the way, cause casualties happened before. I come from the whore, right in my golden decor. I am the sword of the Lord, I came from before. This is a spiritual war, treasures for he who endures. This is a spiritual war, many ignore. This is the knock on your door. I am the hammer of Thor, so stay out the way.
What's up, soul family? It's your host Chaziel. Welcome to another episode of Truth Lives. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about principles. At the end of the day, our world comes down to laws and principles. Laws of the land, man-made laws, laws of the ocean, maritime law, moral law, even in science and mathematics, things come down to laws. And that's something that we have to understand as a people. We have to understand that you just can't do whatever you want and think you're not going to have consequences for your actions. That isn't the real world. A big part of why our society is in a position that it is because we think that we can do what we want to do, and morals aren't real. Morals are subjective. And what I'm saying is no matter what you do, whatever the causal factor is, there's always going to be an effect. We may not be able to see the effect, but there's always going to be an effect. Now, before I get too ahead of myself, I want to review a little bit of what we've been talking about on the last episode of Truth Lives. Basically, we were talking about solipsism and its issues. Basically, they're saying that truth isn't real. It's a distorted view of the human experience. Perception is our reality, and nothing is sure to exist outside of the mind. The manipulators of the world would love if everyone adopted this imbalanced belief system because it forces you into a more selfish worldview. With the use of esoteric philosophy, psychology, and even quantum physics, among other fields of study, solipsism is a tool to eliminate purpose from the masses. Furthermore, if the people fall deep into this deceptive belief system, law is rejected entirely. Why? The trap of the absolute. Now, we have the relative and we have the absolute. Absolute truth has been defined as things as the mind of God knows them, while relative truth is things as the highest reason of man understands them. The absolute is all that there is. Nothing can be taken from it nor added to it. It's itself in its totality. To the finite minds forming a part of the universe and viewing it through mortal faculties, the universe is very real. Even if the universe is a dream in the mind of the all, we have to understand the relative truth in relation to the absolute. Understanding of these two polarities, the absolute and the relative, we get a much better understanding of solipsism and its issues being a deceptive trap we shouldn't fall into. Utilizing the law of polarity, we don't fall in the trap of half-truths. Life, action, and thoughts should be treated accordingly based on their plane and laws. In recognizing the absolute view, we must not make the mistake of ignoring or denying the facts and phenomena of the universe as they present themselves to our mortal faculties. We are not the all. Remember, that's from the Kybalion. And I'll be looking into the Kybalion as we go through these laws. The Kybalion is a book written by the three initiates. It's a absolute classic. I believe this is an essential book to read to get acquainted with these principles for anybody who's just interested in this type of information and wants to get a deeper, maybe an esoteric view of the laws and the principles that our world are subject to. But I'll be looking at this book, and I just want people to know real quick, for any new listeners or even the returning listeners, just so we can make something very clear. I don't claim to be some expert. I don't align myself with any institution or cult whatsoever. I'm my own person. All right. I just want to build with people who are like-minded or who are just curious about this type of knowledge. That's really my motivation within all of this, because I believe that, hey, we've been fed a lie. I think that we're on this rat race, and we are in a society where we're entitled. We're in a society where things are probably better in terms of material and technology and information than any other time period. However, people are more unhappy than other time periods because I feel like people don't have purpose. We are looking at all of these things outside of ourselves, and we don't have any purpose. We don't really know our real purpose as a species. People are only focused on the rat race. People have an imbalanced, trauma-based outlook on life, and their actions and their results are based on those imbalances that we have. And that's part of the reason why our world is messed up. It's not necessarily some higher regime, even though there are people out there who may call themselves masters, whether they are master masons or master occultists. But these things that I'm about to mention, they plague us on a regular basis, day to day, with people who look just like us. We do it to each other. At the end of the day, these principles live in the lowest life forms, all the way up to all the way up to everything in existence within the universe, which is all just a mental creation. And I'm gonna get into these laws here in a second, but I just want to, like I said before, I just want to build with people who are like-minded and who are curious and who also may share a belief system and feel like, they've been lied to. There's been some information that's been hidden from us, and they don't believe what they're being fed by the media and so on and so forth. But just to continue with this, because I don't want to get too off track. Here at Truth Lives, nothing is off limits. No topic is forbidden. I'm looking at every philosophy, every belief system, mythology, cult, whatever I find interesting. And there's no finger to the lips over here. That's not, how can that be truth? How can that be truth if it's something that I can't talk about, or if something is forbidden, or something is blasphemy? How can that be the truth? If something isn't true, then let's challenge it, debate about it, and come to the agreement and give all of the people the opportunity to come to their own conclusions. So, I understand that it's a lot of people, fake gurus, false prophets, con men, all throughout this polarizing culture, all selling some dream for money and whatever selfish ambitions that they crave. And all I can say is don't follow them. You need to look inside yourself for the truth and pay attention to your instincts while also looking at what's in front of you and what's factual. This all comes down to balance. I understand that these people are exploiting people in every way possible. But we're all the same. We're all on the same level. Everybody bleeds red. Nobody is superior. We're all going to die and leave this plane at the end of the day. So stop putting so much faith in man and the words that he may utter. And do your own research. Search yourself. This is what I've been led to. This is what I believe. And this is what we've been shown through results. So that's pretty much what I have to kind of say about that. How do we really know if what we think we know isn't a lie? From every institution, if their foundation is based on a hypothesis or stories utilized for control, professed by men throughout the ages as truth. All it takes is one variable to be off. Even if one has good intentions, I understand we can all be deceived. A lot of people are so deluded, whatever outcome they desire, that's the answer they're going to get. How can you even trust your own mind? We are prone to hallucinating our conscious reality to make sense of the world. But I just wanted to let you all know that, so y'all kind of have an understanding of where I stand, where I'm a seeker just like y'all. But let's get it. This particular subject may be considered occult or secret wisdom. That's what some may say. Now, occult just means hidden or secret. Occultism is a body of knowledge that details the study of hidden laws of nature. Dark occultists seem to utilize these laws to their advantage, manipulating the tides in the expense of the masses. The so-called hidden knowledge occulted in secrecy throughout time is natural law. Natural law is a body of laws that operate in the unseen or the non-physical realm. Understanding natural law isn't based on belief. The constant flow of law is understood by its consistent, repeated results or effects. These laws are also known as cosmic laws, universal laws, or moral laws, since they deliver the moral effect to a society. If a group or society is psychologically manipulated, the collective attitude shifts in whatever direction that's convenient for the manipulators. So, understanding law is understanding balance. It's understanding what I call the mechanics of the all. Now, the 7 natural laws that I'm going to detail are known as the 7 Hermetic Principles. Okay? This is attributed to Hermes. Some know him as Tahuti or Thoth in Egyptian mythology. Whether he existed or not and when is up for debate. I'm not going to get into a detailed description of Hermes or Egypt in Greek mythology. That's not what this episode is about. But one way of looking at Hermes is that he himself was a principle. One who reaches the level of thrice great is someone who studied for many years. I think one of his legends has him living for like 300 or 400 years. So you can look at these as principles, given anthropomorphic form or assigned to nature's principles. Now, these 7 principles are broken down from highest frequency to lowest. He who knows these principles has keys to the temple. The temple is the human body. The human body is a 3-dimensional, corporeal machine. Knowing these principles wakens the person inside this vehicle. So we're going from mentalism to gender in order for a purpose. Principle number 1, mentalism. The all is mental. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Basically, everything in existence has its existence in the mind of the all. What this means is everything starts with a thought. The universe is a mental creation of the all. For anything to exist, thoughts had to exist first. Then they form the physical reality. So we have to master our thoughts. Mastering our thoughts, one is conscious to the power of thoughts creating conditions. So we watch what we think. Wire the brain not to just accept anything because the mind is like a computer. It can be programmed. If a toxic belief system is invading your thoughts, then that will dictate your behavior. We can't just hope for change to happen. We have to change our own thoughts first. Our reality is the way that it is because of the mental states of the people. But that's just a real quick explanation of the law of mentalism. So we all understand that the universe is mental. All is mind. We're living out an experience in the mind of the all. Principle 2, correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This principle states that there's always correspondence between laws of the various planes of being and life in existence. Knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from known to unknown. They are reflections of each other, really. The microcosm being the really small or pieces or units making up the body. The whole is the macrocosm. According to holographic theory, everything we hear, see, or feel, in fact, comes from a flat 2-dimensional field, like the hologram on a credit card. The 3D world we experience is encoded into the real 2D universe, like when you watch a 3D film on a 2D screen. Also, if we look at the Fibonacci sequence, which is repeated endlessly, or the Mandelbrot set. These are like examples of fractals in mathematics. And that's just a few examples of correspondence. So we can understand how to measure the unknown by measuring ourselves. So you can apply mentalism and then the law of correspondence here. So we're going from highest frequency to lowest. Now, number 3, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This principle explains that the difference between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration from the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter. All is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. The Kybalion. Nothing is purely solid, y'all. Also, some think of vibration in this kind of frame, as how the all extended itself from itself in order to experience himself in his totality, as within, so without. Now, that's just another quick explanation of vibration. Now, number 4, the principle of polarity, yin and yang. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truth are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes meet. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything, etc., etc. The Kybalion. Heat and cold, although opposites, are really the same thing. The difference consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. It's no such thing as absolute heat or cold. The same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness, which are the same thing. The difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomena. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, between black and white, between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative? The principle of polarity explains these paradoxes, and no other principle can supersede it. The Kybalion. And that's another law that needs deep meditation, that just needs deep contemplation. It's one of my favorite principles. Number 5, the principle of rhythm. The principle of rhythm states that everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. The Kybalion. This principle embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion, to and fro, a flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and a low tide, between the two poles which exist in accordance with the principle of polarity described a moment ago. There is always an action and a reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking. This law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and finally, the mental states of man. See, the Hermetists have grasped this principle, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects. The Hermetists have grasped this principle, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects in themselves by the use of the appropriate formulas and methods. They apply the mental law of neutralization. They cannot annul the principle or cause it to cease its operation. They have learned how to escape its effects upon themselves to a certain degree depending upon the mastery of the principle. They have learned to use it instead of being used by it, the Kybalion. So this tide isn't just set in stone, y'all. It can be overcome by higher levels of consciousness. Free will does exist. You just have to use your will to push through the tides. Cause and effect. Number 6. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law, the Kybalion. Nothing ever merely happens. There is no such thing as chance. While there are various planes of cause and effect, the higher dominating the lower planes, still nothing ever entirely escapes the law. The Hermeticists understand the art and methods of rising above the ordinary plane of cause and effect. By mentally rising to a higher plane, those become causes instead of effects. The masses of people are carried along, obedient to the environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, heredity, suggestion, and other outward causes moving them about like pawns in the chessboard of life. But the masters, rising to the plane above, dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, and become movers instead of pawns. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by other wills and environment. They use the principle instead of being its tools. The masters obey the causation of the higher planes, but they help rule on their own plane, the Kybalion. Free will is within its boundaries or laws in its plane. You can break law, but you will have negative consequences, okay? This is what we call consequentialism. The knowledge of how consequences are generated by our free will within the boundaries of natural law. The effect may not happen immediately, but the universe will intelligently set the effect into motion based on the causal factor. So we may not recognize the effect from our perspective, so we think we get away with stuff. It can never be that way. And I'll explain the plane of effects and the plane of causality on a later piece. Number 7, the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes, the Kybalion. This is true not only of the physical plane, but of the mental and even the spiritual planes. On the physical plane, the principle manifests as sex. On the higher planes, it takes higher forms, but the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle. An understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of men. Everything and every person contains the two elements or principles. Every male thing has a female element also. Every female contains also a male principle. If you would understand the philosophy of mental and spiritual creation, generation and regeneration, you must understand and study this Hermetic principle. It contains the solution of many mysteries of life. And we'll definitely, going further on Truth Lives, we'll be looking at the principle of gender because I think it's one of the more overlooked ones. But I want to quickly get into the divine paradox. The truly wise, knowing the nature of the universe, use law against law, the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy, transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher forces against the lower. escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master. Remember the divine paradox, that while the universe is not, still it is. Remember, ever the two poles of the truth, the absolute and the relative. Beware of half-truths, the Kybalion. Now, I know that there are other universal laws that I didn't touch on, but this is the most fundamental, the most basic that I wanted to get into, because you can kind of utilize those other laws by using this as a foundation, so to speak. So as you start to look at the law of attraction, the law of causality, all of these other laws and principles, they all kind of can be put together, and it can get kind of convoluted a little bit. So these are the most fundamental, and what I utilize, I meditate on very deeply. But from here on out, we're going to really start to look at some concepts within our reality for some of the deeper, darker ideas that man has about our reality that a lot of people may not like to explore. But if this is going to be Truth Lives, we have to explore that. We have to explore the things that make us us. You know, as we move further, we're going to do a deeper analysis and explanation on. If these dark occultists and secret societies understand the truth about natural law, why do they do what they do? The answer is most people don't care. Most people live in their own mind where everything is relative to them, and they don't think that the universe or the all is going to punish them in the way that we think. A lot of these people think they have a higher understanding on these principles, and that they can do whatever they want. These people are ruled by their desires. We have to understand human nature. Like, even if you have knowledge of some of this stuff, when certain circumstances happens in certain people's lives, people would do anything. You understand? And if, just like I was kind of saying earlier, even if people find out that what they're into is based on a lie, if they can benefit off of it and still live their lives comfortable, why would they make the truth accessible? That's something that you're going to have to get yourself. Okay? But yeah, most people don't really care. Most people look at this stuff from a different perspective. This game is about manipulating this giant intelligent construct to the will of the practitioner, the will of the person. They deify the dark side of the self. In order to move up the ladder in higher planes of consciousness, they have to synthesize the dark side. This synthesis brings them a step closer to vibrating on higher planes. So yeah, they believe they can manipulate the tides on these higher planes where they don't swing back with the pendulum. Even though nothing can overcome cause and effect, they neutralize their effect by acting as the inevitable result. A better way to look at it is like, we have man-made laws and we have universal law. If a society is subverted in a certain direction or trend, a new backwards law, rule, the universal principles of this plane are going to act in a way that's consistent with its cause. So if Joe Blow is knowledgeable of the circumstances and decides that he's going to play the role of that inevitable effect, instead of being subject to that negativity, he's going to benefit from it. They just play out that role. Somebody has to be in Satan's army. Isn't that part of the prophecy? There has to be polar opposites, which are just one body. The only difference is their degree. So yes, there's this divine paradox, this contradiction. And going forward on Truth Lives, we're going to dig into this divine paradox and more for understanding the truth when it comes to good and evil. Because I know I'm kind of leaving on a cliffhanger when discussing good and evil. So what does this mean exactly? Exactly what is the all? What are you saying? And that's something that we're going to explore. That's something that we're going to explore much deeper going forward. This comes down to us, mortal men, putting our minds together to see what this is. What is it? What do we live in? I know some of y'all are Christian. Some of you guys are Muslim. Some of you have the belief. Some of you believe in duality. Okay? Let's see. Nothing's off limits here. Nothing's forbidden. Everything is being revealed now. So let's see. Let's come together. No one's better than anybody. Let's leave the name calling behind. Right? Let's leave all that behind. And let's see what we can come up with. Not influenced or indoctrinated by some belief. A lot of people, they believe their whole foundation is based on something they don't even understand. They don't even know where these things came from. So I'm simply looking at it all. I'm looking at it all because, look, I don't believe you. So Truth Lives is going to get real deep.
Let's go Duckery!
That's all I got for y'all. I love y'all. It's your man Chaziel. Peace, love, freedom, truth. Y'all be safe.
We're gone, just chasing survival and praying for hope. 3 in the morning, I'm blowing that smoke, feeding my soul intentions of growth. The more that we rise, the more that it shows. The more we evolve, the more this corrodes. Alchemical magic inside of our bones, transmuting this age till all becomes gold. You wanna be seen, your life is a show. Recording your deeds, you think we don't know. We lurk in the dark, your soul being bought, your energy cost. I think it gets flawed, stuck in the wilderness, wandering lost. Under a spell, but you think you a boss. Fuck with the chosen and you will get tossed. Roll out that carpet, we dripping that sauce. It's like we be seeing what nobody saw. Or maybe they have, didn't answer their calls. I shatter dimensions and watch them dissolve. Plus I might insult, I ride for the cause. Look, this is a spiritual war, many ignore. This is the knock on your door. I am the hammer of Thor, so stay out the way, cause casualties happened before. I come from the whore, right in my golden decor. I am the sword of the Lord, I came from before. This is a spiritual war, treasures for he who endures. This is a spiritual war, many ignore. This is the knock on your door. I am the hammer of Thor, so stay out the way, cause casualties happened before. I come from the whore, right in my golden decor. I am the sword of the Lord, I came from before. This is a spiritual war, treasures for he who endures.
Let's go Duckery!